bankruptcy after dozens of its members attempted suicide. At least 11 members of the Attawapiskat First Nation tried to take their lives at the beginning of April, and another 28 tried to do so in March. New Democrat Member of Parliament Charlie Angus says the government has done too little too late.
If these were non-Aboriginal children, all the resources would be in their schools. When they're Aboriginal children, well, hey, you can take a number and stand in line and...
Justin Trudeau, our Prime Minister, our beloved Prime Minister, has not visited either of those reserves to inquire, to see what the living conditions are like, or to speak with victims and survivors. As of recent, he has agreed to meet the Chief of Northern Ontario's Attawapiskat. He has agreed to meet him, however, on his terms of the Aboriginal Chief coming to Parliament building. I feel like it would be a bigger statement if he went there and actually got involved with the community and spoke to them and to understand where all the pain and suffering is coming from. I feel like this is a small example of how big issues get swept under the rug so regularly. So in my last video, I did say that I wanted to get a bit more involved with the Aboriginal community, that I wanted to hear their voices, I wanted to understand from their perspective, you know, where all this pain and suffering is coming from. So I spoke to one particular member of the Aboriginal community. He chose not to be filmed, and I completely respect that, but he did give me information that I could readily use for my videos. He tried to explain to me the cycle of violence in the Aboriginal community and how it affected men and women differently. To begin with women and the abuses that they are affected with. He explained to me that they encounter domestic abuse on reserves. And according to the Strategic Framework to End Violence Against Aboriginal Women, it is believed that in northern Aboriginal communities, between 75% to 90% of Aboriginal women are battered. I'm just trying to now look at this substantially large number, and now I'm like envisioning the cycle of abuse and how that 75% to 90% of battered women, their children, seeing this violence, and then, you know, carrying that pain now with them. And I'm just seeing this vicious cycle that's not ending. So what ends up happening is that women who are facing abuse on the Aboriginal reserves, they end up leaving. And it tends to be one of their only solutions to get away from the abuse that they are encountering. However, the issue here also is that they are leaving their community, their family, their culture, their traditions, you know, the land that their forefathers have been living on. The thing is that Aboriginal women have higher vulnerabilities than non-Aboriginal women when they do enter these new spheres. So what happens is that they become targets of a new type of violence. And Aboriginal women are specifically targeted because perpetrators believe that they come from a certain type of minority group that if gone missing, they won't be noticed or cared for. And I mean, that's not entirely false, given that we had to demand our government to inquire into the substantially large number of missing and murdered women. Now, when I was speaking to this gentleman, he made it very clear that the perpetrators of the violence on the reserves are Aboriginal men. And the perpetrators are usually victims of their own kind of abuse that was also encountered by men. So there is, as I spoke before, a vicious cycle of abuse that is just being handed down. Now, I feel like most people will think, well, see, the violence is committed by Aboriginals against Aboriginals within their own community. So what does this have anything to do with non-Aboriginals? We don't understand the historical context of why, you know, these things are taking place. We don't understand terms such as intergenerational trauma because they were never taught to us. Also, I feel in our society we are so quick to assume that men are perpetrators by nature. Like, I completely get the notion that, you know, at the core we are all animals, and you know, men have testosterone, but I'm kind of like just sick of hearing this as an excuse as to why men are like natural perpetrators. I don't believe that. I don't believe that men are innately these vicious, violent beings. We fail to recognize that men are also victims of severe trauma, and unlike for women, different networks available to them, men don't really have the same opportunities and help. In complete contrast, men are shunned by society when they do ask for emotional or mental stability or help. They are slapped on the wrist and told to go back out there in society and to man up. I mean, if you look at statistics, men have the highest suicide rates. And not only do they have the highest suicide rates, but the way that they choose to take their life is usually in like the most vicious way, whether it's shooting themselves or electrocuting themselves or hanging themselves. It's limited engagement and services for vulnerable men. So what ends up happening is what they have seen historically. It's how they saw their fathers, their grandfathers, and the men of their community deal with issues that they were not, that they never learned how to deal with their emotions. So what ends up happening is that they bottle up their emotions until they've had too much, and then they explode. And they explode in ways which then harm women. So if women are victims of men, then I conclude that men are victims of this society. And one of the biggest examples of that is the fact that if you Google services for vulnerable men, there will only be one center available for all the men in Toronto, the GTA of hell, like all of Ontario. And the ways in which this cycle of abuse is being passed down is through what is called intergenerational trauma. The transmission of historical oppression and its negative consequences across generations. Fortunately, the Aboriginal community does recognize these patterns, and different organizations are being created for vulnerable men. Today, I am meeting Rocky. I'm very excited to meet him because he specializes in programs that bridge the gap between Indigenous and non-Indigenous communities.
Danza, Muska, Sugapu, and Sigasan. Hi, my name is Bear Standing Tall, and I'm the founder of Bear Standing Tall and Associates. I'm a Cree. I'm a Nehio from Onion Lake Cree Nation, Treaty 6 territory. Bear Standing Tall and Associates provides Indigenous awareness training and cultural sensitivity training using the holistic approach. Our vision is to create a bridge between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people, including newcomers to Canada. We talk about many different things that are sacred to our people, and most of our information that we give is based on through our lived experience and what the elders taught us and how we interpret those teachings and why we think it's important that we share this with other people. We talk about the true history that you don't learn in mainstream education systems. We talk about the true history of colonization from an Indigenous lens. We talk about intergenerational effects that our people are living with. And some of the intergenerational effects are addiction, poverty, lack of parenting skills, lack of communication skills, low self-esteem, and those are just a few. And there's a lot of effects that we have: broken homes, over-representation in the correctional system in Canada. Right now there's over 50,000 Indigenous children in foster care. I went through a lot of these effects. I was taken away from my parents. First of all, I went to day school, and I was abused in day school. And then I was taken away and I went to a foster home, and then I was abused in the foster home. And then I grew up in a dysfunctional family, a lot of violence, I grew up in fear. And so when I went on my own, I ran away from home when I was 15, and I brought a lot of baggage into my relationships, and I'm not proud of what I did. I'm not proud of those cycle of abuse that I incorporate into my new relationship, and ultimately my relationships would fall apart. I went on living on my own in the big world with a really colonized way of thinking. I struggled with addiction for most of my life. I also think it's very important that we educate non-Indigenous people about who we are, what we believe in, what are our values, what are our beliefs. There is a lot of information that the general Canadians don't know about what happened to our Indigenous people. One example is they used an electric chair in some of the Indian residential schools. You know, and the atrocities are just, you know, they're hidden from Canadians and the world, and so it's up to us Indigenous people to make sure that we share this knowledge with people, so this will never happen again. And Bear Standing Tall and Associates, our goal is always healing and wellness is our main goal, is our focus. As an Indigenous person, it helps me with my identity. It helps me to understand my relationship to the land. It helps me understand my relationship to the trees, to the four-legged, the winged ones, the crawlers, and the ones that fly. Bear Standing Tall and Associates is located in Toronto, and I look forward to seeing you in a circle in the future. All my relations.
I just want to give a huge thanks to Rocky for making himself available to speak to us and to really give us his personal experience with intergenerational trauma, with colonization, and the way it has affected him. You know, to hear the violence and abuse that he encountered, and this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to provide a voice, an avenue for someone to let us know about, you know, firsthand what is happening and what is taking place, and more so for us to better understand the tragedies that the Aboriginal communities are facing. You know, things that took place in the past, like residential schools, and the severe trauma and how it affected them. It's clear how it has trickled its way to the present. So if you would like to get more involved with the Aboriginal community, to learn more about their history and way of life and culture, do check out Bear Standing Tall and Associates. Another thing that you can do to get more involved with these Aboriginal issues is to write to your local MP and address to him or her your concerns. Another thing is just having that choice not to be so ignorant. I mean, really doing your research and really trying to learn about something in someone's background before you pass judgment or point fingers, or just having like a basic level of like assumption. Like we should steer away from that. And actually, I mean, we live in a world where we all of knowledge is at our fingertips. So, you know, not just feeding into the mainstream stereotypes that we learn about different groups of people, but actually wholly educating ourselves. Please let me know if there are issues that you are very passionate about and think that isn't getting enough attention or isn't being discussed enough. Thanks everyone for listening. Do like and subscribe, and I will be releasing another video shortly.